Shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hi everybody, Clark Smith here. I'm the winemaker for WineSmith, and this is my muse, money manager and wife, RuthE, and we're going to talk to you today about Grenache. We're particularly looking forward to September 18th, which is International Grenache Day. We make 3 Grenaches, and they're also somewhat romantically involved with these wines. So we won't spill all the stories now because we want you to come in to our Zoom meeting we're going to do on the 18th. 3 wines from the same vineyard. This is the Bates Ranch in the Santa Cruz Mountains. They're very famous for their Cabernet Sauvignon. People don't really realize that they have Grenache. And we make 3 wines off of that. Of course, we have a standard Grenache Rouge. And this one's from 2014. And then on the very same day, we picked a section of the vineyard that didn't have as much color and made a sparkling wine out of it. And we've come to believe that California, and particularly the Santa Cruz Mountains, is actually a way better place to make Method Champenoise than France is. And so you have to tune into my Zoom meeting to find out why I think that. But I really think Champagne is actually the worst wine in the world, and I think the French agree with me. I'm dying to tell you that story, but I'm not going to tell it right now. Let's just say that we can do some really wonderful things with Method Champenoise. This here is a rosé off the same vineyard. Now, the Santa Cruz Mountains are known for being very minerally and having really distinctive flavors of place, or terroir if you like. And they're also really small vineyards, and so they're surrounded by the local vegetation, which can often give aromas to the wine. We call that terroir as part of the terroir. And particularly when we get into the red, we'll be telling you a little secret about how that works. Champagne is normally served in a flute. That's good because you can see the bubbles rise. This is a much better way to drink sparkling wine than that coupe, which is flat and dissipates the bubbles and the aromas and everything. But this isn't really a very good glass for looking at aroma. So why do we drink champagne in a glass like that? Why, it's because champagne doesn't have any aroma. So, but our wines do. So we like to put them in a tulip, or this is a trumpet. That's really going to give us that aroma. You can just use a regular wine glass tulip like this. Is fine for champagne, but we like to use the trumpets because you can really watch the bubbles rise. Let's just see what we got. You'll notice that there's almost no color. There maybe is a slight gray color to it, but it almost looks like a white wine. And that's because we pulled it right off the skins. You'll see that we have a very fine mousse. Those bubbles will take a long time to dissipate. Alrighty, so let's see what we have here. We like that's the lover's clank there. And you've got 3 things going on the nose here. It's a Grenache, and so of course there will be strawberries. That particular vineyard seems to impart a sort of a honeydew melon aroma. But then you've also got a lot of what we think of as yeastiness. It's actually, in this case, a combination of malolactic and yeastiness. It smells as if this were a French champagne, you'd think that it had been on yeast for at least 4 or 5 years. But it's actually just 1 year. So the neat thing about that is that the aromas, they're like very young and very old at the same time, which I think is really kind of fun.
I'm enjoying the celebration that's going on with the bubbles here. It's very, very active.
Yeah, but very fine.
Spirited, yeah.
Yeah, and what do you think so far? She likes it because we poured it at our wedding reception. I remember I had Jason Fernandez and his wife were up all night. Hand labeling these bottles so they could show up for our wedding. You don't care about that, but anyway. In the mouth, we have very rich flavors and some nice body. There isn't really any tannin. In the finish, you have a lot of minerality. It's like acid, but it's not acid, and we don't really know what it is, but Santa Cruz Mountain wines are always loaded with minerality, and it makes them age for a long time. And sometimes not taste so good when they're young because it's just flat aging trajectory. But the neat thing about this wine that you will never find in a champagne is the length of the finish. This is a Brut Zero. Even the dry wines, the Brut champagnes always have at least 1.5% sugar because they just have a lot of acid. But here, our acid is lower. We lowered it still with the malolactic, and so there's really no reason to have sugar there. And to me, when you drink champagne, it can be marvelous. Don't get me wrong, I love the current vintages of Dom Perignon. They're just so good. But it's short. You know, you get to the back and the acid and the sugar kick in, and you just kind of... That doesn't happen here. You have a long, long finish. You can taste this for several minutes after you drink it. Just very complex and rich and just lovely. So, okay, so that's the bubbly. I guess I'll tell you a little bit of the story. I was trying to make this wine as a rosé, and it just didn't work. When you get ripe Santa Cruz Mountain Grenache, it just closes up on itself, and it wasn't a nice fruity wine. I found out later on that to make a wine that you can release any time in its youth, you got to pick it early. And this is kind of our go-to wine for every day. I was trying to make a Provence style rosé. You know, in France they drink more rosé than white wine. And the reason they do it, I know this is going to sound weird, but the French don't know anything about wine, and they're scared that they're going to make a mistake, and so they always go down to the store, to the local enologue, and ask him. They say, well, you know, we're going to make pâté de foie gras, and what wine shall we serve? But rosé, the standard line about dry rosé, and I think it's true, is that it goes with anything. You take a bottle of rosé over to your friend's house for dinner, and you don't even know what they're going to serve. This will always work. And I got to tell you, this wine will improve for a decade. But it's just fine right now. Again, we have the strawberries and the honeydew melon, and I don't know what it is, basil. And it also has a little tiny bit of acacia wood, which brings a kind of honeysuckle aroma, and then it also gives a little lushness in the mouth. And you may remember that we were looking at this wine, we're going, we really want it to be bone dry, but it had a bit of an edge to it. So we just put in a tiny bit of acacia wood, and that rounded out the palate. So that's what you have here. And then nice long minerally finish. About every other night we end up with a bottle of this. It's just kind of our go-to general purpose wine. Okay, now here's the red. And when I first made this in 2014, it was really tight, and I wasn't sure I liked it. But by the time August 12th, 2017 rolled around, we decided to pour it for our wedding. You want to talk about these glasses here?
About the inscription, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. We chose as kind of a theme, a musical theme for the celebration, a quote from a Garrison Keillor poem that had been set to music, and the chorale that I was working with was singing this piece at the time. A summer night and you and paradise. Look it up. But we had that etched on the glass.
Yeah, so we had like 360 of these
and our
glasses.
dates. Yeah. And we took them to receptions around the country.
Well, and then tell them what we did during the ceremony.
During the ceremony, we shared a common cup with our guests, the WineSmith Blessing Cup, and poured this wine and had it shared. The lucky people on the end of the row got the rest of the glass.
We sang this song, and you would talk about how you ended up composing that?
Yeah. I've been working in church music for many years, and Clark was sort of bent on having a song composed for the sharing of the Blessing Cup. And we were a week away from the wedding, and I didn't have any inspiration. So as we were driving back through the Napa and Sonoma valleys, I said, "What is it you want to express with this song? Because the grapes are kind of whispering to me." And so he talked more about what he wanted the act of sharing the cup to convey and what it would symbolize. And so he came up with this text, and it took me about 30 minutes to set it once we had a text.
It's kind of about, her people and my people. It's kind of weird. We've both been living in Sonoma County for a long time, but all of her musical groups are SATB. They're mixed. They have women and men in them, and all of mine are all men. And so we had never met, and it was just a coincidence that we ever met at all. But we wanted to marry these tribes of different singers and also all the winemakers and stuff, and create a new tribe. And that's what the song's about. It's on YouTube. It's called the WineSmith Blessing Cup. I'm pretty sure if you put that into YouTube, you'll see it. All right, let's talk about this wine. Again, with the strawberries, it's got a lot of complexity, but it also has a certain earthiness to it that kind of reminds me of the garrigue that you get in the Rhone Valley. And we found out what it was. One of our investors, we went down to the vineyard, Dave Forsberg. He came over and he said, there are all these white flowers all over the vineyard, and particularly in this meadow right across the road. So we went over there and we rubbed the stems, and there's that same smell, kind of creosote kind of smell that pervades that vineyard. It's called tarweed, and we figured out, there it is. It's the same stuff in the wine, and it gives a little bit of kind of gunpowder green tea, jasmine. So there's a lot going on in this nose. And then it's not a big wine. It's a kind of medium bodied, nice and chewy. Then you get back to the finish and there's that minerality again. It's very lively. Drinking just great right now, but this thing will go at least 10 years in a good cellar, probably more. That's our story. Hope to see you on Grenache Day. And we've got the wine on special this month in a 3-pack.
It'll sell it for 10 years, but if I were you, I'd drink it now.